Thank you very much. Thanks.
Thank you.
I wish we could be there in person, but it's impossible for so many reasons right now between COVID-19 and the fires and all that. So it's nice to be here with you virtually. Thank you for the nice introduction, Dr. Alexander. As you know, my name is Steve Blake, and my specialty is nutritional biochemistry. But I won't use too many big words, although I love big words. I am not a medical doctor, I'm a doctor of science. One of the things that I do is I only use safe solutions. If something is not safe, if it is well proven to help with Parkinson's disease, but it's not safe, I'm not going to tell you about it. The other thing about everything I'll tell you today is that it's all based on good science, and you will see citations on the bottom of almost every slide. And you can find out more at drsteveblake.com. That's at the bottom of this screen. And my wife, Catherine, will be joining me today.
Hi, everybody. Aloha.
And she'll be giving you some recipes and ways to implement this information. Diet really can have a big effect on Parkinson's disease. First of all, food can interfere with the transport of tyrosine and levodopa, so cinnamon, in other words. Tyrosine is how we normally make it, and I'll be telling you about this, how we make dopamine in our brain and how diet can interfere with this. Also, foods can harbor environmental neurotoxins that damage and kill dopamine-producing nerve cells. This is very well established. We know the names and identities of these culprits who destroy your dopamine-producing cells, and we can avoid them because they're concentrated only in certain foods. Now, food can also protect the cells in the substantia nigra, pars compacta, and the axons running down to the striatum to make dopamine and to make movement possible. I'll be telling you a lot about which foods can help with this. You know that the cells in the midbrain make dopamine. Of course, we make dopamine all over our body, but it is these cells that are able to initiate movement. In other words, if you don't have enough dopamine, you may have slow movements or difficult postural feelings, cramping, feels like your feet are stuck in cement, or tremors, all of the motor symptoms. Now, this neurodegeneration, this loss of dopamine producing cells happens long before, not years before, but decades before Parkinson's disease is diagnosed. By the time diagnosis occurs, usually 50 to 60% of these dopamine producing cells have been killed off from lack of antioxidants, from neurotoxins in the diet. Well, our goal here today is to preserve every single one of your dopamine producing cells that you have left. And in other words, to slow or stop progression. Now, I think it's an interesting point that may not have been made, is that the various drugs used for Parkinson's disease, while they help with symptoms, do not slow the progression of Parkinson's disease. They do not slow neurodegeneration. They do not protect dopamine-producing cells from dying off. That's what my talk is about. And this is also something that your neurologist may not have discussed with you in any great detail, partially because of time constraints, of course. We can, however, even though the drugs don't slow this, there are ways to slow the death of dopamine-producing cells. Of course, you want to avoid the neurotoxins that kill them and also get more dietary antioxidants. And I'll be talking about the studies on this as we go through. This study at the bottom is in the journal Antioxidants from 2020, and it's talking about dietary antioxidants in Parkinson's disease. Excellent study if you like to read science. My wife has a cookbook called Parkinson's Disease Cookbook, and I have a book, Parkinson's Disease Dietary Regulation of Dopamine. These are both available on our website, drsteveblake.com. You can get a machine-readable form to read on a tablet or computer or even a phone, or you can get actual paper books, and these options are available online. I will say the electronic versions are under $10, making it very accessible for people. A little bit of science before we get going. How is dopamine made? You may not realize that dopamine is made both in people pre-diagnosis or post-diagnosis with Parkinson's disease because of tyrosine, an amino acid commonly available in diets, is absorbed from the gut into the bloodstream, travels and enters the brain, where it is made into levodopa. And this enzyme, tyrosine hydroxylase, I will talk about a little bit more because certain things damage tyrosine hydroxylase and other things improve its ability to make levodopa. In other words, you can make your own levodopa in your own brain. We're all doing it right now, and I want us to all continue doing it. Maximum efficiency, please. Of course, levodopa, Sinemet, or other drugs are taken also dietarily, and they are made into dopamine from levodopa. Now, you know probably that carbidopa is added to levodopa in drugs like Sinemet, and this is to stop the production of dopamine from levodopa outside the brain. The carbidopa doesn't enter the brain, so it doesn't stop it inside the brain, but it stops it outside, and the production of dopamine outside the brain is responsible for some of the side effects that are undesirable. Excess dietary protein blocks the transport of levodopa and tyrosine into the brain. In fact, higher levels of protein can block levodopa entry 50%. This is in spite of the fact that the blood concentrations of levodopa are adequate. It just can't get into the brain because people are eating too much protein. I'll be talking about how much too much protein everyone's eating in a minute. All of the essential amino acids are transported, except for lysine, through the large neutral amino acid transporter. And so you can think of this as rush hour in the digestive system. You're eating a lot of protein, and there are a lot of amino acids in your intestine. And these amino acids are trying to get through the amino acid transporters into the bloodstream, which you could think of as a highway going to the brain. However, the tyrosine can't get in as much because of the competition. Then when it travels up to your brain, again, the bloodstream is loaded with too many amino acids because of excess protein. So it's very difficult for this tyrosine and levodopa to get into the brain using the same transporters. In other words, if you eat an adequate amount of protein instead of an excessive amount of protein, it has a huge difference. The quote here is from the Journal of Parkinsonism and Restless Leg Syndrome. Now, how much protein do people get? One of my projects is dietary analysis, which I've been doing for many decades. On the standard American diet, 149 grams of protein. But wait a minute, how much protein do we need? 46 grams is the recommended amount for all people over 50 years of age and women under 50. Men under 50, it's recommended 56 grams of protein. Now, of course, if you're pregnant or extremely active, you may need more protein. But for most of us over 50, and I certainly am in that category, 46 grams is recommended. But the Atkins diet, 122. The Zone diet, 140. The Paleo diet, 141. All of these diets are about 100 grams in excess of our needs. This extra protein blocks the absorption of both tyrosine and levodopa. And it doesn't just do it right after meals. Now, your neurologist may have told you to take your Sinemet a half hour after meals or an hour after meals. Not good enough, because the protein persists in your intestine for many hours. As we know, it's a very satisfying food. The Bulletproof diet, 235 grams of protein. That's almost 200 grams of excess protein. Now, the diets that are lowest would be a vegan whole food diet or a raw vegan diet. And I think you'll be shocked and astonished to see that they are not at 46 grams. No, they're 74 and 81. So it is extremely difficult, actually, to get the recommended amount of protein rather than an excessive amount. When people do lower their protein, in these 4 studies, they lowered protein to 56 grams per day, 35 grams per day. Now that's below the RDA, and I never recommend that. 77 grams per day or 63 grams per day. The response rate among participants was 100%. Every single person who lowered their protein to the needed amount had a 100% response rate. So you may want to consider, and my wife can help you with this, lowering your protein to what's needed rather than the massively excessive amounts that people are eating. There's another way to do this. The best way is definitely to lower your protein to the needed amount, no doubt. That helps the most people. But there's a protein redistribution where you eat your heavy protein at dinner and you eat lighter protein at breakfast and lunch. This significantly prolonged the effect of levodopa therapy compared to when excess protein was consumed. By limiting protein to the evening meal, on time was improved by 4 times. Now, you all know what on time is. That's the good time, when you're not tremoring and you can walk more normally. Walking speed was twice as fast. Test scores were much better. This is from the Archives of Neurology, an excellent journal. And this study showed, as many do, that protein redistribution diets are effective. I've had many people tell me that I ate a steak at dinner and the Cinemet didn't work. Okay, that's because of the interference in the protein. And of course, you're still going to get interference at dinner. If you're eating 100 grams of protein at dinner, then that is going to interfere with your ability to walk and your tremoring on into the evening and into the night. However, it is a step in the right direction to redistribute your protein. 80% had less tremors with this protein redistribution only at dinner. They'd eaten either 7 or 10 grams of protein for breakfast and lunch. And the response rate, look at that, 86%, 61, 64, averaging 80% of the people who did this protein redistribution had excellent results. And so they're lowering their dopamine, they're getting more on time, faster walking speed, all of that. This is from a 2017 study in Frontiers in Aging Neuroscience. This is a study done in Italy by Luciana Baroni, a neurologist there. And when I talked about this study to our resident movement specialist at Hawaii Pacific Neuroscience, she said, no, that's impossible. She said they must not have tested the people during their on time, or they mix up on times and off time. So I corresponded with the author who's in an international group with me. And she said, no, we tested all at the same time. The plant food diet was found to improve motor performance in Parkinson's disease patients. The Unified Parkinson's Disease Rating Scale was about twice as good, and the Hone and Yar scale was much, much better. Reduced protein increased the transport of levodopa and tyrosine into the brain. Remember, tyrosine gets made into levodopa. It's like you're making your own drug. This is how it should work. This study was interesting because prior to the study, both groups were eating 67 grams of protein, much less than most Americans eat. And the experimental group changed to 49 grams of protein. So that little change, 67 to 49 grams of protein a day, twice as good on the Unified Parkinson's Disease Rating Scale, 25 versus 47. That's a big boost that I would love all of you to have. Now, plant diets in another study helped after only 1 week, and I hear this all the time. It doesn't take a long time for you to stop interfering with your drug and stop interfering with the production of levodopa from tyrosine. Now, fluctuations in symptoms were helped with less off times. It is important to note that if you do change to a lower protein diet, you need to work with your neurologist. You may need lower doses and less frequent doses of the drugs that you're taking. So work with your neurologist, notify him about this, and you may need to call him up and say, I'm experiencing dyskinesias, can I lower my dose? Some people are already on symptom responsive dosing. So just be aware of that. It's very powerful. A Brazilian study, they avoided only red meat. Their motor skills improved 60%, with 50% of the improvement in the first 3 months. They added vitamin B2 to this study. One of the ways that red meat can be a problem is that when you eat red meat, more of your dopamine producing neurons are killed. And this is through both oxidation and glycation. Whenever meat is cooked, for instance, barbecued, fried, broiled, these advanced glycation end products are formed. And they are extremely inflammatory to the brain and increase oxidation in the brain by one estimate 50 times. Oxidation is what kills dopamine-producing cells. Also, there's oxidized cholesterol in meat. This oxidized cholesterol is very damaging to the brain. And by the way, although cholesterol does not cross the blood-brain barrier, oxidized cholesterol, called oxysterols, do cross the blood-brain barrier and damage the brain. Also, proteins are oxidized. When they looked at Parkinson's patients, they found that the advanced glycation end products were 1.5 times as high. In other words, quite a bit higher. So the most dangerous foods here would be processed foods, sausages, cured meat, chicken, pork, and beef patties. And this is from a study in Redux Biology Journal in 2020. I've been going over the latest research for the last month for you today. One of the ways that plant fiber is helpful on whole plant food diets is that it slows the absorption of levodopa and tyrosine so that you're getting a nice trickle for more on times and more stable concentrations, more stability in symptoms, improving and lowering the fluctuation and rigidity. And of course, constipation is a problem for a lot of people with Parkinson's disease, and a plant fiber diet does definitely improve that too. Which diet is perfect for Parkinson's disease? Well, that depends. In the later stages, you may experience becoming too thin and needing a lot of calories. There are ways to get enough calories without increasing your protein to levels that are giving you much worse symptoms and more off times. And my wife is going to tell you about that. And I'm going to introduce you now and turn you over to Catherine Blake.
Hi, everybody. So I made this chart using the Diet Doctor software that my husband created for us, which analyzes the nutrients in different foods, because I know that there are some people who are concerned about losing weight with Parkinson's disease. So what I did was I compared the calories in foods with the protein that you're getting. So on the top of the list for excellent choice would be pecans as a snack. You're only getting 5 grams of protein in a half a cup, but you're getting 376 calories. Even better would be macadamia nuts. You know, those little tubs, you could go through a whole tub in one sitting. Well, I shouldn't do that, but it's very high in calories at 472, but again, low in protein at 5. Remember, your daily need is 46 grams per day for adults over age 50. Raisins are pretty good. They've only got 3 grams, but 246 calories. Prunes are good, also similar. And this is a half a cup of each serving. Now, one thing to note is that peanuts are very high in protein. And for example, peanut butter, well, we don't usually eat a whole half a cup, but 29 grams of protein. If you only need 46, you've got most of your days right there, over half. Even if you're eating a quarter, it's just high proportionately compared to all the other nuts. Peanuts, 19. So you're doing good, but almonds are also high in protein. So for snacks, you could stick with the pecans, walnuts, mac nuts. Dried fruits are good for if you want to increase your caloric intake. Sesame seeds are pretty good. They're a little high in both, with 19 grams of protein and 633 of calories. The walnuts are okay. The sunflower seeds are a great choice. Next slide. So I looked at different foods. Where's the protein, right? Where's the beef? Remember the old ad. Tuna. Now, some people might eat a whole can of tuna, but I wouldn't in the past. But a whole can of chicken of the sea chunk like tuna has 40 grams of protein. You pretty much got your whole day's amount right there if you're wanting to stick to your adequate protein for the day and not go over, which would interfere with the tyrosine absorption and creation of dopamine in your body. We want to preserve what we can. Salmon is pretty high too. A 4-ounce serving, a serving of salmon is about 39 grams. Frozen lasagna, 2 cups, 30 grams. 2 slices of cheese pizza, that's common food, 27 grams of protein. A McDonald's cheeseburger, a double, 24 grams of protein. Now, these are common foods. Let's look at low protein foods. Tofu, still not too low at 10 grams. You could eat that 3 times a day. You wouldn't want to probably, but you're still in your safe zone. A black bean burger, 10 grams. Almost all the beans are 8 grams per serving. Almonds, an ounce, 6 grams. Almonds are good. So one of the tricks for you to bring home to your kitchen is that whole plant foods can provide adequate but not excess protein. So you can be doing better with your daily symptoms. Here's a little recipe. Instead of fish sushi, you could try making your own avocado sushi, or they even sell it at the different sushi stores. It's fun to make. You just take the sushi nori seaweed and fill it with avocado, cucumber, tomato, and rice. And you still can serve it with the ginger slices, the soy sauce, and the wasabi. So you're having that exciting flavor. You're having sushi wraps. It's very delicious, and you're not going over your protein needs. What about making changes? Is it hard to change your diet? Well, you know, people with Parkinson's disease can experience almost immediate relief from their motor symptoms and thinking difficulties. We spoke with one man in the clinic who, he and his wife had been dealing with Parkinson's for about 16 years. She was taking care of him in a beautiful way. And she said that she was trying to fatten him up because he was thin. And she was feeding him a heavy breakfast of bacon and eggs and toast and, you know, cream cheese on the toast, anything she could think of that would fatten him up. We talked about this and they switched to oatmeal with fruit. Now there's a picture of oatmeal with fruit and it's about half fruit. It's delicious, it's easy to make, and it's not going to overdose your protein for the day. For example, this meal would probably be about 8 grams of protein in that breakfast. Her breakfast that she was serving him was probably about 30, more or less. Bacon can be high depending on how much she was eating. So this is a safe meal for your protein quantity and for a lot of other reasons too. You're not getting the toxins that can be organochlorine pesticides that can be in the other foods too. So we talked to them. Next time we saw them once a month or once every 2 months. And she said, only our breakfast changed. And I saw 25% improvement in my husband. We were thrilled at these results. We said, how long did this take, you know, to make this change? And she thought about it and she said, it was the next day. So it was actually, in his case, it was intellectual improvement that she'd noticed. We had another couple, and this man, a dear man, had Parkinson's for 36 years. He'd been a college professor, and he was falling down every day, and he wasn't comfortable. He was taking his meds every half hour. And so they changed their diet to an adequate protein level instead of an excessive protein diet. And she said, we plan to continue the diet. And it has been helpful to discover that it is not as hard to do as we anticipated. There's nothing like good results to keep us motivated. And she told us that her husband was now starting to tool around a little bit, take little walks. And he was actually going out to his wood shop in the back and working in the wood shop again, which was unheard of when we first met him. Dr. Blake and I founded the Neuroscience Nutrition Foundation, and as president of the Neuroscience Nutrition Foundation, I'm happy to tell you about it. We're dedicated to research and education about the protective benefits of nutrition to stop or help Parkinson's disease, Alzheimer's disease, and many other neurologic disorders. You're not going to hear this stuff from other people. My husband, Steve, does indefatigable research. He reads studies, then compares the studies who wrote it, figures out if it's accurate or just paid advertising. And so you're getting really primo information here that can be useful to you. And it's all safe and at home stuff you can do to take care of yourselves. Isn't that what it's all about? Taking care of yourselves. And that's what we're teaching you to do. Most of our work is volunteer. Please consider a donation if you'd like to support our vital research and education at www.neurosciencenutrition.org. We thank you. Now on the right is a team of doctors who donated their time to do the Hawaii Dementia Prevention Trial in Honolulu. We were published in the Brain Sciences Journal in January 2019. That's very exciting. That was the results of our trial, and that was for Alzheimer's, and we had good results. Again, just nutrition. Thank you.
Okay, well, I know she's a lot more fun than I am, but I've got a lot to tell you. And I'm going to talk about foods that reduce the risk and progression of Parkinson's disease. So here's some things that you can add to your diet that can protect you. Now, the first one I'm going to mention is soy and methionine. Methionine is a polyphenol. It's actually a flavonoid and a flavanol. And it restores tyrosine hydroxylase. Now, remember what that means. That means you can better make your own levodopa in your own brain from dietary tyrosine, especially if you're not taking in too much protein. It also helps restore the dopamine transporter in the midbrain. This is very important. Dopamine itself, if it's not properly sequestered, can kill off dopamine producing cells. One way to do it is edamame, which is shown here on the screen. It looks like green beans. They need to be cooked well, though. Make sure you cook them well. Or soy milk, which has only 5 grams of protein in a cup and has a lot of this. I recommend organic soy products only because they're heavily sprayed normally. Now, sesame seeds, and here I show tahini, which is sesame butter. It has a dopamine enhancing effect. The sesamin is a heat-activated antioxidant in sesame seeds, sesame oil, and other sesame products. And it increases the biosynthesis of tyrosine hydroxylase, so you can make your own levodopa in your own brain, allowing you to have more dopamine that can then shoot on down to the striatum and make your movements easier. There are carotenoids in colorful foods. Fruits and vegetables typically have a lot of carotenoids. Green vegetables also contain a lot of carotenoids. The chlorophyll hides the beautiful colors. Some of these carotenoids, alpha carotene, beta carotene, and lycopene, were lower in Parkinson's patients. And those among the Parkinson's patients who had lower carotenes had more symptoms and worse symptoms. So these low levels of carotenoids may be a problem. The solution: eat plenty of fruits and vegetables. That's not a bad prescription, is it? Now, here's a study on flavonoids. They studied 130,000 people for 20 years, and they had 40% less risk of developing Parkinson's disease if they ate more flavonoids. Flavonoids are antioxidant and anti-inflammatory, and both of these help protect the dopamine-producing neurons in your brain from death and inflammation, of course. You can see the reference down here is from Biomolecules, the journal in 2019. Now, it's interesting that people who smoke cigarettes develop Parkinson's much less. And this is because of an influence of a nicotine receptor. Now, I'm not recommending that you smoke cigarettes. They're just too bad for your health in so many ways. However, did you know that peppers have nicotine in them? And in general, the whole pepper family, potatoes, tomatoes, and peppers, reduce the risk of Parkinson's by 19%. However, in non-smokers, people who ate more peppers, the risk was reduced 87%. This is a huge reduction in risk from some delicious red bell peppers.
Okay, I promised you a recipe or two. Here's a good one. It's called Best Friends Topping, and I created this when we were living on our sailboat. Had limited kitchen use. Anyway, it's about, it's great. It's symbiotic. The two flavors get along so well together. They enhance each other in a beautiful way. So to make this, you just use, it's very simple. 3/4 of a cup of cashews chopped up, 1 cup of red bell peppers, and a tablespoon of olive oil. Now, the trick is you cut the cashews and the red bell peppers to about the same size, and then they cook perfectly together. So you saute it all together on medium-low heat for about 10 minutes, stirring frequently to prevent scalding of the cashews. You turn off the heat and you cover it. This is what allows it to swell up and sweat, and the flavors blend. Let it sit for 10 minutes to soften, and then you can serve it with vegetables, potatoes, salad, or any other food. It's quite delicious. Now, I looked up the nutrition in Best Friend. Now, for those of you who are the intellects in the crowd, and I think most of you are up there in Sonoma, I use the Diet Doctor software that Dr. Blake created, and it helps you analyze exactly what you're getting in each of your foods. And there you can figure out what you're missing or what you're getting too much of. Now, I love this software. I don't use it very often, but when I do, it's a real eye-opener. So I analyzed the nutrition in a half a cup of bell peppers with a half a cup of cashews. You're getting all of your vitamin C at 95 milligrams. You're getting all of your vitamin A in the form of beta carotene, all of it that's recommended every day. You're getting most of your vitamin E at about 10 milligrams. Now, you remember Dr. Blake said that, he might not have said that yet, but 93% of Americans are not getting all their vitamin E. And do you know how important that is as an antioxidant? All of us need that. So you're getting most of your vitamin E in this. Half of your iron, half of your selenium, which you need to create your own glutathione peroxidase antioxidant. You're getting half your protein. Now, you are getting some protein here, so you can maybe cut back the cashews a little bit if you want to, or not have a whole half cup. What I'm doing here is I'm telling you what is available in this, and very good zinc. On top of which, you're getting absolutely great flavor. So it's a winner of a recipe. Enjoy. Thank you.
It is really a fun recipe, and you can put it on top of anything. Salads, potatoes, vegetables, or whatever you put it on, you're going to want to eat. And of course, those flavonoids in the bell peppers are also very protective with their antioxidants. I want to talk for a few moments about Lewy body dementia. Lewy bodies are clumps of alpha-synuclein protein inside neurons, and they can be present in Parkinson's disease. After 20 years, the risk may be from 24 to 80% higher for Parkinson's patients compared to others. Now, one possibility is that ginkgo improves cognitive function. There are many excellent studies. We use the standardized extract. I show a bottle that we still sell to people with cognitive problems. After all, we are here in the Maui Memory Clinic where we see cognitive problems all the time. Bicolin is a substance found in skullcap herb, and it reduces the formation of alpha-synuclein in Lewy bodies. The flavonoids hinder the alpha-synuclein aggregation and reduces the toxicity of the alpha-synuclein in Lewy bodies. Do remember that this skullcap herb is a sedative and makes you sleepy, so you wouldn't want to take it anytime except before bed. Red grape. Now here's almost a great idea to put a cup of red grapes next to your chair, and you can see the disappearing grape act, because they just disappear, don't they? You just eat them. Resveratrol increases protective glutathione, slows the death of dopamine-producing cells. This is our goal today, no progression. It reduces oxidation and cell death, protects the mitochondria, the energy factories in the cells. Resveratrol reduces Lewy bodies by increasing the degradation of alpha-synuclein. There are no drugs that degrade alpha-synuclein, none successful yet, but grapes do. And you may think of other ways to eat grapes other than as grapes. Turmeric is amazingly good for you. It can rescue dopamine-producing cells by reducing oxidative damage to their energy factories and mitochondria. It increases protective glutathione, one of the important antioxidants in our cells, and reduces Lewy bodies, both lowering alpha-synuclein and synphilin-1 aggregation and reducing the alpha-synuclein toxicity. So it does degrade alpha-synuclein, and so this is protective. A curry is a great way to eat turmeric. Curries are made with turmeric powder. Black tea and green tea both reduce the risk of Parkinson's disease by 25 to 50% in the various studies, and reduces the toxicity of alpha-synuclein. There's powerful antioxidants in green tea, catechins. Have you ever wondered what it was that killed off the 50 to 60% of dopamine-producing cells by the time that people are diagnosed with Parkinson's disease? Well, I'm going to tell you. First of all, I don't know if any of you have heard of BMAA in food. It's got a long name, beta-N-methylamino-L-alanine. It's made by algae, blue-green algae, and it's concentrated in crabs, shrimp, fish, or shellfish. At certain times when these things are bioaccumulated in these animals, When they checked brains from Alzheimer's patients, they had high levels of BMAA, even when compared to Alzheimer's disease and ALS. Now, ALS is very closely and tightly related to consumption of BMAA in seafood. That's originally how it was discovered. BMA can damage and kill both dopamine-producing cells and increase Lewy body dementia. Good idea to avoid these products. And again, this is from a journal, Amyotrophic Lateral Sclerosis. Harmane's another substance. Now, you may not want to check this slide too carefully because it may mention some of your favorite things. Harmane is a food contaminant. If you look at the little graph on the right, you'll see that Parkinson's people have, at the very lowest, higher levels of harmane than at the very highest in normal people without Parkinson's disease. In other words, there's a lot more harmane in Parkinson's disease. What does it do? It increases tremors. Now, essential tremor is very common, and harmane is very closely associated with essential tremor. It's also closely associated with tremors in Parkinson's disease. So what you can do, instead of giving up all these things immediately, is you could do a trial. See if your tremors are better. It doesn't cost you anything to, say, stop drinking beer. Look at the totals. Huge. Beer is very, very rich in harmane. And cigarettes, very rich. Pork, broiled beef, cheese, bacon, and broiled chicken. These are all very high in harmane, which is a heterocyclic amine. This is a substance formed when you cook meat, basically, or when you cook cigarettes, or somehow in beer. Now, advanced glycation end products, I did mention once before, and they increase the misfolding in Lewy bodies and tau tangles and amyloid plaque in Alzheimer's disease. They greatly increase oxidation. As I mentioned, one estimates 50 times the free radical damage and death to brain cells when you're eating advanced glycation end products, which have been shown to be absorbed into the bloodstream, and they are put into the brain through the RAGE receptor, which is receptor for advanced glycation end products, maybe aptly named RAGE, since it increases inflammation in the brain greatly. Sources: fried or broiled chicken, beef, pork, or fish, and also aged cheese. Now, in our trial on Alzheimer's disease, with a Hawaii dementia prevention trial, which I was lead author and participated in, we had people not eat fried or broiled chicken, beef, pork, or fish, and not eat aged cheese. These particular AGEs are not found in unaged cheese. You might want to avoid the use of pesticides in your house, especially things like organophosphates such as malathion. Pesticides used in the home increase the risk of Parkinson's disease quite a bit. And this is from many, many studies. Now, animal fat increase the odds of getting Parkinson's disease over 5 times. And this is because of the bioaccumulated toxins in animal fat. Actually, the odds ratio was 5.3 in the study in the most prestigious journal, Annals of Neurology. Animal fat stores and biomagnifies these persistent organic pollutants. And they are also, of course, a high protein source and very low in antioxidants to protect the brain. One of the toxins is an organochlorine pesticide called lindane. It's now a persistent organic pollutant in the environment everywhere. When they checked Parkinson's patients, they found that they had much higher levels of this lindane than even Alzheimer's patients or control patients. Parkinson's disease risk 4.39 times over normal risk. Major potential dietary sources of lindane include milk, eggs, and cheese. Now, you may be asking yourself right now, well, what am I supposed to eat? I will let you know that for 50 years now, since I was 20 years old, I have eaten a plant-based diet, and I am very happy eating it. I enjoy every meal, but I do not eat milk, eggs, or cheese, nor do I eat any other animal products. So it's certainly possible. Eating organic's a good idea. Organic food has become much more available and much cheaper. And since there are 46 studies showed the risk was 62% higher. And remember, when you're looking at Parkinson's disease risk, you're looking at the risk of losing dopamine producing cells. And you're looking at Parkinson's disease progression, you're looking at the progression of losing dopamine producing cells. So these risk analyses are very relevant to progression as well. Avoiding milk and cheese slows the progression of Parkinson's disease. People with the lowest dietary product consumption were 60% less likely to get Parkinson's. One reason is the excess protein. Cheese, very high source of protein. Another reason is dieldrin and lindane, two organochlorine pesticides. There are many others concentrated and bioaccumulated in dairy products. Lower uric acid. It's interesting, dairy products lower uric acid in the blood. Uric acid, although if it's in excessive levels, can contribute to gout. Normally, it's an excellent antioxidant that we preserve in our bloodstream, but dairy products eliminate this antioxidant, greatly reduce it. And then there are endotoxins known as lipopolysaccharides that trigger the activation of our brain's glia and microglia to kill off brain cells. And these are some of the main concerns with milk and cheese. You can see there's two different journal studies down below. And here are more journal studies. This one's from the journal Movement Disorders in 2020. For every slice of cheese consumed, Parkinson's risk increased 36 to 48%, a huge risk. And it's because dairy products are contaminated with neurotoxic pesticides. Now, here are a couple of meta-studies that looked at it. The one on the left is from the American Journal of Epidemiology in 2007. Every single study increased the risk. You can see there's a bright white bar, and then to the right of that, each study is represented showing an increased risk. The one on the right, it's called a forest graph, was from Neurology in 2017. And I believe Mark Alexander brought this study to my attention, actually. And every single study showed an increased risk of Parkinson's disease with dairy product consumption. This is from milk intake and risk of PD. And here we have my lovely wife.
Thank you, dear. Milk makes a body grow, right? Cheese, a meal ready to eat. You have cheese, you don't need the other stuff. Maybe some bread or crackers, glass of wine. I love cheese. Eggs are so easy to make. They take no time, they're ready to eat. What are you gonna do? Okay, it's been for me a 30-year journey of learning how to substitute to my satisfaction to where I no longer desire cheese or milk or eggs. It's been a long journey for me, but you know what? I'm cleaner for it. I don't get the postnasal drip. It's a lot better overall. So dairy alternatives, I have done the research. I like to call things good, better, and best. So good dairy alternative, because it doesn't have that lindane and dieldrin toxins messing with your dopamine production. Anyway, good are the Miyoko's nut cheeses. There's a big spread of them on the right. They're very impressive. They're very filling and quite delicious. They're not cheese, okay? They're nutty. They're nuts, but they taste good. You can fool yourself pretty good. The diet cheeses on the left corner, they're delicious. I like right now at home, I have the Swiss slices and I have the smoked Gouda. Really good cheese alternative. They also make some very delicious coconut oil-based cheeses, but they're very high in saturated fat, and we don't want to clog our arteries while we're trying to keep healthy in all of our other ways as well. The clogged arteries and the saturated fat can lead to dementia and other problems. Smart Balance is a pretty good butter alternative. Okay, but you know what? In my future, as I evolve, I'll even leave these more behind. So good, better, best. Those are good. Better would be the butters, sesame butter, nut butters, almond butter, sunflower seed butter. Those are pretty good. Watch out for the peanut butter, as we already discussed. It's very high in protein, and we want to keep our protein levels to an adequate 46 grams per day. Best would be the actual whole foods, olives. You know, I use olives instead of olive oil now. well, I use a little olive oil. Don't tell Steve, right? But olives in the food for flavor and oil. Avocados are a wonderful dairy alternative. And then there are some non-dairy ice creams that are out there that are excellent flavor, very passable. You can fool your friends if you want to and say, have some ice cream. And then after a while you say, you know, it was non-dairy. And they go, well, it was great. I created an avocado fudge ice cream, which is a blue ribbon winner. It's very easy. You can make it at home. Here's a little recipe. 3 ingredients: ripe avocados, organic cacao powder, and a sweetener of your choice. Now, I use organic sugar. You can use brown sugar, you can use molasses, stevia, erythritol, any sweetener that you prefer, honey, maple syrup. And what happens is you mix them all together, about equal parts of each, a little more avocado actually, and then you freeze it and you get this avocado fudge ice cream that is so good and chocolatey. Everyone loves it. It's a great winner for dairy alternative ice cream. Here's another recipe. Lunchtime, time for a sandwich maybe. Maybe you're familiar with hummus. Hummus is made of chickpeas, garbanzo beans, mixed with tahini. Now, some of the store-bought ones also use a lot of oil. What it is, if you make your own, you can use the garbanzo beans, empty a can into the blender, throw some tahini in, about 25%, and flavor it with fresh onion, garlic, red bell peppers, whatever you want. But that's the basic recipe, and it's very satisfying. It's got that 8 grams of protein in the garbanzo beans, so you're not overdoing it. That tahini is high in sesamin, which is protective of your pars compacta substantia nigra cells. So this recipe is very easy. You just take a slice of multi-grain bread. I like the Ezekiel. It's very highly nutritious. You cover it with the hummus, a little onion, a little alfalfa sprouts, and then you top it with my creamy walnut dressing, which I created. It's in my cookbook. Awesome dressing. And you just pour that on top and repeat as necessary. You'll have a wonderful lunch, very satisfying and very safe for your health.
Does it seem like she gets all the fun stuff? Well, I do have to mention that there's another persistent organic pollutant called polychlorinated biphenyls, and they bioaccumulate in fatty substances. In fact, one study showed that biomagnification could be 100 times, 1,000 times, and even 100,000 times more bioaccumulated, say, in fish than in the environment that the fish grew up in. Through the food chain, this bioaccumulation occurs. They accumulate in the brain and disrupt dopamine. They damage cognitive function and they increase oxidative stress. Now, they actually outlawed these in 1977, but they're persistent in the environment everywhere, from the North Pole to the South Pole. But they substituted polybrominated diphenyl ethers instead. And the damage to the dopaminergic neurons, dopamine-producing neurons, is very much the same. They impair motor function. Many studies showing this. So where do you find these things? Well, fish oil is the highest source. Fish is the second highest source. Eggs and dairy products bioaccumulate these persistent organic pollutants. Sadly, baby foods and beef. Vegetable oils have very little, and fruits, vegetables, and cereals have virtually none because they don't bioaccumulate. By the way, some people think that eating organic meats like lamb or chicken or beef give them less exposure to these, but that's not true. If you look at the studies like this chart on the bottom, the chicken, the organic food had a little bit more of organochlorine pesticides and polychlorinated biphenyls, both, and the beef had quite a bit more of these. So they're in the environment everywhere. So even if you're feeding these animals organic feed, they've still bioaccumulated from the environment. I'm going to talk a little bit more about antioxidant. To lessen neurodegeneration, we want to stop the progression of Parkinson's disease. That's the best we can do. I want to go back and say that my website, drsteveblake.com, if you'd like to email me with any questions, I may be a little slow to get back to you, but I will get back to you. Steve@drsteveblake.com. And you have my book, Parkinson's Disease, The Brain and Body Food, which I'll talk about a little, and Parkinson's Disease Cookbook. Now, people with PD need more antioxidants. There's several reasons why this is true. Rigidity and tremors generate oxidation, as does any type of exercise. Tyrosine hydroxylase can create oxidation. Metabolism of dopamine can make oxidation, can make hydrogen peroxide. And nerve inflammation can increase oxidation. As it progresses, antioxidants are used up. Here are the antioxidants in food. We have carotenoids in fruits and vegetables, vitamin C in fruits and vegetables, vitamin E in nuts, seeds, and avocados, and polyphenols in berries and other whole plant foods. We also make our own antioxidant enzymes. These enzymes are very important to protect our brain, but it is necessary that we have zinc, copper, and manganese for superoxide dismutase, and it is necessary to have selenium in order for our glutathione peroxidase to turn hydrogen peroxide into water, which is very important in our brains. And there's also coenzyme Q10, our only fat-soluble antioxidant that we make inside our bodies. It is possible to take that as a supplement. I will mention it in a couple slides. The brain and body food is similar to what we used in our trial for Alzheimer's patients as an antioxidant formula. It's available on my website if you wish to get a real one. Don't we get enough in our diets? No. When I analyzed the diets, the standard American diet got 26 out of 90 of vitamin C, and the 90 is just the lowest suggestion. I like to get 300 or 400 milligrams of vitamin C in my diet. And the vitamin E was only 7 compared to a minimum of 15. I like to get 40 or 50 milligrams in my diet. The Atkins diet was the worst, with vitamin C and vitamin E pitifully low. The zone and paleo diet managed to get enough vitamin C with fruits and vegetables, but again, the vitamin E was too low. The bulletproof diet, although probably the worst diet I've ever analyzed, for instance, you seem to lose calcium every single day you're on it, and falls and broken hips are very devastating to old folks in general and PD patients specifically. The South Beach diet was low in vitamin E. In fact, they were all low in vitamin E except the 2 whole foods diets. The Mediterranean diet did okay on vitamin C and almost enough on vitamin E. The vegan whole food diet had a nice amount of vitamin C and a nice amount of vitamin E. The McDougall diet, which is one of those super low-fat diets, good for the heart, they say, but with only 3 milligrams of vitamin E, not good for the heart. And the raw vegan diet actually had the most vitamin C and vitamin E. So dietary antioxidants are not always available in your diet, depending on which of these diets come closest to your diet. You can see how you do. You can actually analyze your diet with the diet doctor and find out exactly. Beta carotene, now this is really interesting. I just found this study. It was a Swedish study, and they found that beta carotene lowered risk of Parkinson's 14%. I thought, why so low? Because the highest any of these Swedish people, 84,000 people in the study, the highest they got was 5 milligrams of beta carotene. I typically get 40 milligrams. So the range in this study was very low. And I find this when I look at dietary studies. Again, vitamin E lowered risk 13%. Nobody in the study got more than 8 milligrams per day. So the highest was 8. You're supposed to have 15 at a minimum. And the lowest was 6. So very little variation in vitamin E. And even that small variation is a 13% less risk. Vitamin C, again, was helpful. Now, this study showed that vitamin E delayed progression of Parkinson's disease 2.5 years. Molecular Aspects of Medicine is the journal, 2007. And there's also another one, Advances in Pharmacology and Pharmacy, quoted below. High-dose vitamin E in association with vitamin C was found to delay the progression of Parkinson's disease. And it is important to get vitamin C with your vitamin E because they work together, and vitamin C is necessary to recharge or reduce, technically, the vitamin E. Vitamin E and beta carotene in this study, in the European Journal of Neurology, vitamin E reduced risk 55% and beta carotene 44%. This was actually done in Japan, and these are from food, not supplements. I want to mention vitamin D. People with Parkinson's had half the vitamin D levels compared with controls. Lower levels of vitamin D corresponded with worse attention, memory, recall, and verbal fluency. Those are things we measure in this clinic all the time. But low vitamin D also correlated with worse tremors, rigidity, postural instability, and bradykinesia, slow movements. This is from the Egyptian Journal of Neurology, Psychiatry, and Neurosurgery in 2019. I think it is important for us all to get vitamin D. The minimum amount that I would recommend is 1,000 IUs a day, which is 25 micrograms. And the maximum amount that I recommend is also the upper level recommended of 4,000 IUs or 100 micrograms per day. I never recommend going over the upper safe limit, but it is perfectly safe to take 4,000 IUs a day, which is equal to 100 micrograms in the more modern system of rating them on vitamin bottles. Use only the vitamin D3 form, not the vitamin D2 form. Another study, vitamin D supplementation stabilized Parkinson's patients' motor symptoms, preventing an increase in the Hoehn and Yahr stage, but in the placebo group, the Hoehn and Yahr stage did increase and they got worse. However, if you eat foods which contain vitamin D, such as fish liver oil, they actually increase the risk of Parkinson's disease, probably because of the persistent organic pollutants in those foods. Now, I have a dear relative who has Parkinson's, early onset actually, and he's having trouble sleeping, some trouble with anxiety and depression. And in this 12-week study, and this is from Clinical Neurology and Neurosurgery in 2020, patients took 10 milligrams of melatonin 1 hour before bed. It reduced their anxiety, depression, and improved sleep. Of course, melatonin is the sleep hormone. It's a natural hormone secreted by our own pineal gland in response to lower light levels so we can go to sleep at night. It increases antioxidant defenses, especially glutathione peroxidase, superoxide dismutase, and catalase. However, it does not improve motor functions. But if you are experiencing trouble sleeping or anxiety and depression, the over-the-counter pills, studies are showing, are often not containing as much as they say they do, and sometimes are contaminated with things such as serotonin. Perhaps not a good idea. So either get a good pharmaceutical grade melatonin, or did you know 20 pistachio nuts contain about 5 milligrams of melatonin? When I travel and I get jet lag, I use pistachio nuts. So that could be a snack an hour before bed that might help in a very natural way. Now, coenzyme Q10 is made in every cell in our bodies, but older folks make it less, and the levels are decreased in Parkinson's patients. Supplementation of CoQ10 in Parkinson's increased mitochondrial function, preserved dopamine, and protected the dopamine-producing neurons against degeneration. Now, in older folks with Parkinson's, higher dosage of 1,200 milligrams per day may be needed. This is a very safe supplement. It's been tested in a zillion studies. We did use it in our Alzheimer's dementia prevention trial, and it is possible that it may be helpful. This is from a Nutritional Neuroscience, one of my favorite journals. I'm going to sum up a little bit and have my wife do that.
Okay, what about food for Parkinson's disease? Well, eat plenty of berries, grapes, and other fruits. That's easy to do. Increase your bell peppers, kale, and cabbage for the cruciferous sulforaphane in the kale and cabbage, very helpful. Include sesame tahini and organic soy products. So for the soy products, you can use beans, tofu, soy milk, soy yogurt. Any beans is good. Stay away from animal fats and animal protein. You might need to learn how to wean yourself off those and still be satisfied. Buy organic food to avoid the pesticides. For more information, you can find out, you can get our books at drsteveblake.com. Thank you. It's wonderful to see you all.
And don't forget those antioxidants. That's what protects our dopamine producing cells, keeps them from dying off, keeps us from progressing so we don't get worse. Vitamin C, real vitamin E is almost impossible to find in any supplement on the market. I wrote a college textbook for McGraw-Hill on vitamins and minerals, and I can tell you that the vitamin E they're selling is not vitamin E. It is a synthetic analog that is 1/8 alpha tocopherol and does not contain the other tocopherols at all. The other 7/8s are not helpful and possibly even slightly bad for you. So either get your vitamin E through walnuts, sunflower seeds, and natural sources. I did put the real vitamin E in the brain and body food because it's made for the brain. Be sure and get enough selenium, copper, zinc, and manganese. And you can email me with questions. And we somehow managed to come to the end of our talk on time. Thank you very much. I wish I could be there in person.